Hey guys, in this video, we are going to go over a few sounds from We Fail by deadmau5. I have this little bass patch here, the top note that accompanies that. We have this little like drone that pitches up and down. And I guess I'll show you a little bit of this like beeping noise. I didn't spend too much time on it, but there are some cool concepts I think that will help. So I will play the original kind of the section that we are going off of, and then we'll go from there. Yeah, and so here's where I'm at currently. Yeah, so I will start with this little bass patch here. Alone, it sounds like this. And then later it builds. So the notes for this are right here. So it's just a B and then the C sharp up to an E. And what's interesting about this progression is that it sounds like this C sharp is actually the beginning of the progression as it goes, but that's actually because it like drops on this B on the first downbeat. So I will take off the processing that I have. So with just a saw wave, this is what it sounds like. So I knew this bass had to have a fifth above, so 7 semitones above. So I use this oscillator B to do that. I set it an octave up, 7 semitones. So with that engaged, we get this sound. And another thing to note is that I've set the notes down at this very first octave. So this B is hitting like 31 hertz. So next, I added some distortion. I tried a few different things. I started with tube, but listening to deadmau5's, he has some different type of distortion on there that makes the bass a little more warm. So I just tried this X shaper. This is the shape that I went for. If I play that, it sounds like this. Kind of add some fuzz in that high end. And then I was trying some things with the phaser to kind of get a different kind of quality in the high end, but it didn't really do anything. So this phaser is pretty much not doing anything. It's not even noticeable. So next is the filter. And I chose the 18 decibel per octave filter, and I'm using the envelope 2. So I created this shape and then this curve of the mod amount. So with that engaged, we get this. So almost there. And then I added this compressor. So I set the ratio to 8, the attack to pretty fast, and then the release to around 20. I did this because I was drawn to the attention of this old post from deadmau5 where he's talking about his sound. And he was saying how he used these kind of settings on a compressor for the saw wave kind of plucks he was doing. So I just decided to try it out. So that kind of controls the sound a little bit, and it kind of gets us more into this sausage shape there. So next are these 3 EQs. So these are doing a lot. First off, I'm trying to get that warm bass character, the sub bass. If I play deadmau5's again real fast, it's very warm, and you see those like sub frequencies, and the frequencies around 100 are pretty strong. So if I play mine without this EQ, you can see where we're at. So it's kind of more of a flat response. So I knew I needed to boost that high end a decent amount. So now we're getting a super subby signal, but we don't want that very first fundamental to be that strong. If you look at deadmau5's curve, that second harmonic is actually the most powerful. So it looks like that first one is cut off. And that's how you're getting that kind of character. One way I knew that this was a first fundamental cutoff is because of the harmonic series of a saw wave. So a saw wave harmonic series, you get the fundamental, the next harmonic will be an octave up, and then the third harmonic will be a fifth above that. So if you look at the curve here, the difference between this harmonic and this harmonic is a fifth. So I knew that this actually had to be the second harmonic, and it's kind of playing the role of the first one. So there's that actual first harmonic down here some ways, but you're not really hearing that. So in mine, to recreate that with this EQ, I'm cutting off that first harmonic. And then I'm also kind of attenuating some of these other frequencies here just to try and get the right tone, and adding some here. I also was adding a little bit of high end. But the difference between this EQ on and off is pretty drastic. So with it off, with it on. So we're getting that warmth in the bass, but the tone is actually allowed to ring out. And then this third EQ, I'm trying to emphasize the actual tone of each note. So I'm trying to find areas where the actual tone of the note itself can be more emphasized, so you're hearing that note more purely. So it just helps, like taking that out there and boosting right here and a little bit up here, just helps to kind of emphasize the notes and make them a little bit more clear in the mix. So next is a limiter to kind of cut off those peaks and get us to that sausage shape. So I'm just getting around like -6 dB of reduction. And then this delay is only active in the break. Or I guess I should say in this first part of the break, it kind of cuts off here. Another thing that I'm doing for this sound is I sent it to this delay right here, because right before the drop off, there's some delay going on. If I play deadmau5's, so to emulate that, I'm sending the signal to this track here, this return track with a delay on it. But if you listen to deadmau5's, it sounds like the delays are more plucky delays. And because the sound is opening up and getting less plucky, I try to kind of return that pluckiness, if that makes sense, to this channel. So I set an LFO tool 1/4. So it's creating a pluck shape from the signal coming in. So this delay gets the pluck signal. So if I play just this return track right here, so that's more plucky. And if I take the LFO tool off, so that's an interesting thing. You can kind of affect the signal going into your return tracks to create the shape that you want. So yeah, that is pretty much the sound. And then I'm automating things like the filter frequency is going up as the sound is building. Yeah, and I believe that is it for that sound. So finally, this is what it sounds like. So that's the first part of the bass. The second layer is just pretty much the exact same patch, but we just have this B note over the top. And then in this section, these are the notes that are moving up right before the drop. So alone, it sounds like this. So it's pretty much the same patch without that fifth above. And I just kept it on tube distortion. Envelope 2 is doing the same thing on the filter, and so is the compressor. And then for this one, I just EQ'd it to emphasize again the parts of the sound that needed to be there. So I took out some of the fundamental and the low end, so this bass would have more room, and then just accentuated the high parts. So that's what you're hearing mostly. So if I play those two together, they sound like this. Yeah, and I am also sending this track to that delay here as well. So the next sound to go over is this little pitchy drone. It's just on a G sharp note, and then sounded like the pitch bend went to like 3 semitones above. So I just turned this up to 3 by the pitch bend wheel, and then I can just move this up and down to the max level. So this is what it sounds like by itself. And for this one, a big part of the sound is sending it to this delay channel. So it's on the 3 setting, and I'm sending that at different parts of the sound to accentuate how the delay is blending with the sound. Like if you hear, if I play it right here, the signal that's being sent starts to blend with the sound, and you get this like phasing effect. So like without that delay track. The delay track mixes with the original signal, and we get like some phasing in the high end because of that. And just adds a really interesting character to the sound. So this one, I just did saw wave with like 4 voices, detune around 0.05, and then I mixed it with a single saw wave. This is another thing that deadmau5 did when he's talking about his sound. He would have like some detune saws and then another saw that's just one voice up the middle. And then I added some tube distortion, and this filter is just doing a little bit of modulation. So the first part of the note is a little bit more dull, less bright, and then the brightness comes up over time. And then for this utility, I just ducked it a little bit for this part right before the drop. It sounded like in deadmau5's there was a little bit of a duck there in this drone, so these bass notes could ring out. And then I just used an EQ to kind of boost some of that high end and then cut the very highs so it's not too bright in the mix. And then I also added a little bit of reverb there. So that's pretty much that sound. So if I play that with the basses, this is what it sounds like. So lastly, we can go over this little like beep sound. I didn't really get this too close. I didn't spend as much time on it, but it's just a B note and it's a triplet pattern, just repeating without any like measure repeats. So it's just constantly going. And to do this, I used a saw wave again, or that combination of saw waves. You have that wider one, with these two detuned saw waves and then just a single one up the middle. And I put this envelope 2 on the level and the cutoff, so we're getting that beepy sound. And then I distorted it a bit and used a compressor to kind of control it. Then I'm taking some of like this 1K region out, just sounded kind of right to me. And this utility is just bringing it up over time as the break moves on. Then I'm using this limiter to cut off the very peaks of it so it's not too harsh. So the interesting thing about this sound is that deadmau5 is modulating like the reverb amounts as well as the delays that are throwing it around. So to try and just emulate this in a cool way, I try to use these Max for Live effects. So I use these LFOs. If you go to Max for Live, they'll be in the audio effects. So what I did is I took this LFO and then it tells you what you want to map to it. So this one is modulating the time here. You can see how it's moving around according to the shape. It's on the random. This is the rate. The depth controls how intense the movement is. So you can see it's kind of going all over the place. So I took that down, and then the offset kind of brings it to the very lower part of it or the higher part. So if I take off this reverb, you can hear what that's doing. And then I'm using another one of those LFOs on this reverb decay time. So if I take the delay off, this is what it sounds like. Probably would sound a little bit better with like a random. And this jitter amount kind of affects these little jittery waves. So with the delay on as well. Just a nice atmospheric effect, but I'm sure deadmau5 actually modulated these by hand to get a more precise effect. So that's pretty much all the synths. Another thing to note, in order to get this like drum loop without the kick in this buildup, which is what is playing in the original, I took the loop with the kick and then I just took one of the kick samples and put it in a new audio channel. And if I throw a utility on here, and if you switch the phase, now this kick is perfectly out of phase. with this kick, so they should cancel out. So if I play just this kick right here, now if I play this, it's completely phased out. So I just did that with a kick across the entire loop and then recorded it. So in this section here, it's the same loop, just with the kick phased out. Just a cool thing you can do. You can also do that if you have an instrumental and the track with the vocal. You can kind of phase out the instruments and just get the vocal. So that's pretty much it for this. If I play all of the sounds together, we will get the final results. So yeah, that is pretty much it. I hope this was helpful for you guys. I hope there's some cool concepts in there. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know of any other things you want me to try and make, but I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you.